Welcome to the Counselor Soapbox video channel, Learning About Alcohol Part 33. In this episode, we'll talk about other drugs the alcoholic may be using. There was a time when alcoholism treatment was separated from drug treatment, but today almost everyone who does one seems to be doing the other, and counselors are called on to know a great deal about both topics. While there are thousands of drugs someone might be using or abusing, the effects that the drug abuser is looking for fall into three general categories: uppers or stimulant drugs, downers or depressant drugs, and a term all-arounders, which comes from Daryl Denaba at the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, drugs that alter perception. There are a couple of drugs that don't fit this classification well, but we'll look at that in a moment. Uppers, or stimulant drugs, primarily consist of cocaine, amphetamines, including methamphetamine, and caffeine. Caffeine is a more iffy drug. In some programs, amphetamine or methamphetamine users will try to consume large amounts of caffeinated coffee to minimize the crash from the amphetamine. So some programs do not offer or do not encourage the use of caffeine. Generally, caffeine is not considered a dangerous drug, though withdrawal from it may result in headaches or tiredness. The downers, or depressant drugs, consist of the opiates. Principal among them is heroin, and it's an illegal street drug, but also prescription opiates and opioids, alcohol, which is definitely a depressant, and barbiturates and benzodiazepines, which are normally prescription drugs, though may be obtained illegally also. The all-arounders, or drugs which alter consciousness, include a group called the cannabinoids. This is marijuana, but can also be hashish or honey oil. A new entry into this area is CBD, which does not seem to have damaging negative properties and has been suggested to be a treatment for a number of conditions. There are also a number of other cannabinoids found in marijuana that have not been well studied yet. PCP is a relatively dangerous street drug. LSD 25, magic mushrooms, salvia, which is an unusual plant that causes hallucinations or altered perception, peyote, and so on. Some exceptions to the idea that we can classify drugs of abuse as uppers, downers, and all-arounders come in the form of nicotine, which is sometimes an upper and sometimes a downer. This is referred to as biphasic. The typical smoker will say that in the morning they have a cigarette to help them wake up. The same smoker will say that at night, before they go to bed, they have a cigarette to allow them to relax and fall asleep. That sounds like in the morning it's a stimulant and at night it's a depressant. In fact, the reason it has these varying results is because as the level of nicotine rises and falls, the effects are different. Another drug that has mixed properties is ecstasy, which MDMA, which has properties of both a stimulant and a hallucinogen. There are also a new group of drugs known as bath salts that have this same overlapping tendency to be either stimulant or hallucinogen, or to alter perception and stimulate at the same time. Some emerging drug problems include steroids, HGH, human growth hormone, synthetics, the bath salts, which come in hundreds of different formulas, synthetic marijuana, or synthetic THC to be more precise. There's a whole family of research chemicals which rarely get sold but occasionally come onto the market and are used by people who are experimenting with drugs. And a new drug, recent drug, Flakka, which is a in the opiate family, but much more potentially dangerous. I mentioned caffeine earlier as part of the family of stimulant drugs, and by that I include coffee and tea and some related compounds. But when is caffeine a problem? Well, per pound of body weight, the highest exposure is in preschoolers, but we've had no good research and probably never will. You can't take 1,000 preschoolers and give some caffeine and not give it to others and see what the results are. That would fall into an ethically very difficult area. Hospitalizations have been rising from energy drinks, and energy drinks that contain large amounts of caffeine are very problematic. I believe all of the energy drinks that contain both caffeine and alcohol have been banned, but that doesn't keep people from mixing energy drinks with alcohol and producing some very untoward results, which end up with people going to the hospital. Caffeine in reasonable quantities may have health benefits. There have been a number of studies that suggest caffeinated coffee without the sugar added may have health benefits in preventing certain cancers. But stimulant users also consume large amounts of caffeine to try to avoid the withdrawal effects, so that may make it more difficult for them to get clean and sober. Some other drug treatment issues, or issues which arise in programs for alcoholism treatment where the clients are also using drugs, that you need to be considering. One is the diagnostic criteria. When we were working under the DSM-4, the older Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, we really separated things into two categories. Someone was either an alcoholic or a drug addict, or they abused the substance, or they used it and had no problems. But under the DSM-5, we've moved it on to a continuum, so we no longer argue about is that person an alcoholic. Use or abuse is now categorized on the continuum from mild to moderate to severe use disorder. There's still a lot of older literature and a lot of programs that are organized around just admit it, you're really an alcoholic. So that distinction is important to keep in mind. There's also the question of should programs be moving towards abstinence, don't do it at all, or harm reduction. Most alcoholism programs try to get people to drink less alcohol and drink it safely and to be careful not to drive or do other dangerous activities when they've been drinking. Alcoholics Anonymous takes the other view that if you have developed a problem with drinking, you probably should give it up altogether. So some programs allow people to continue to consume while others ask for total abstinence. There's also a controversy around treating addiction with medication, either narcotic replacement therapy or some other medications that might help in the process. And a new development has been housing for homeless or for people in recovery that are called wet houses, in which the people are still allowed to consume alcohol on the premises, even though they're trying to be in recovery or trying to get clean and sober off the streets and no longer be homeless. So it's controversial whether people who are in government-supported public housing should be allowed to consume alcohol, or should they be banned, or should they be taught to consume it in a reliable, responsible way. What's ahead on the Counselor Soapbox video channel? More videos on drug counseling, drug education, mental health, and wellness. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the like button below. Comments are always appreciated. And if you want to see new videos in this series, please subscribe. Thanks for watching. For more information, please visit my blog, counselorsoapbox.com. David Joel Miller fiction and nonfiction books are available on Amazon.